Back in 2022, the Scream franchise was revived with fresh new characters, whilst also incorporating those old ones in more of a side character role. Since then, the films had been promising and looked to steer that franchise in a new direction with new blood, yet through some behind the scenes controversy, everything went wrong going into the latest release for this franchise, Scream 7. Whilst you never write off a film before it's released, everything was going so wrong for this one that it felt doomed from the start. Now that it has been released, it is time to find out if that is the case or not. So let's rank all 7 Scream films from worst to best.
I'm screaming for my life because honestly I'm afraid to let me twist in the night.
And yeah, that is the case here. Scream 7 easily comes in at last place for me, and it is clear how much those behind the scenes issues caused such a lackluster entry into this series. Following the previous entry, it was all set up for yet another solid outing with its interesting characters, but this one takes it away from that direction in favor of excessive fan service, which just comes across as desperate. Familiar faces return yet aren't given too much to do, and in those moments of fan service, they're not good moments, they're just very lazy and cheap, as beneath them there is very little quality. The general plot is very familiar and generic, riddled with plot holes, and even with the newly released characters, there feels like there's no effort into developing them to the point where their screen time is literally axed and their character is forgotten about for large portions of the film. So yeah, this is easily the worst entry in the franchise and what looks to be the franchise killer as well. Scream 3 has always had the reputation of being the weakest in the franchise, and if anyone agrees with me, I feel like that title has now been lifted off of its head, as this was never a bad film, it was just the weakest of a fairly consistent bunch. That meta formula feels quite exhausted here by this third entry, and therefore just makes this feel like any other meta slasher film which kind of attempts to copy the Scream formula since its release, which is not something you want to say for a film which is in the same franchise as that revolutionary one. Past that, there are just so many corners cut in the story to allow for certain things to happen, in particular the use of unrealistic technology being utilized to make certain scenarios happen which wouldn't otherwise. Now I say unrealistic, that technology is possible now, but at the time it just wasn't. It just felt like a superpower, if that. So yeah, it might age better now with the use of current technology, but I still find it one of the weaker in the franchise. While Scream 3 is weaker, I don't think Scream 4 is too much better. It kind of just plays it safe, and I can understand why. It comes out over a decade since the previous entry and doesn't do too much in terms of ambition. It sort of just repeats the familiar tropes and tricks, which therefore sours the return of the characters a little bit, as they just feel like they're brought back for something they've already done. The kills are solid and there are no real crimes committed. However, I just feel like this is such a tame effort and a weaker version of what has come before.
I think I love you, so what am I so afraid of?
As slasher sequels go, Scream 2 is quite a solid entry, to be honest. Rarely do they live up to that predecessor, and that isn't the case here, but the kill count is increased and those kills are gorier as well. It continues the story for the surviving characters in quite a nice way. It does struggle to carry on that meta humor by venturing too far into the self-aware, whilst also following certain things from that predecessor a bit too closely. But yeah, it is a fun entry, nowhere near the quality of the original, especially since it has quite a disappointing killer reveal. But yeah, still quite fun. The new environment of New York City lends for a very fresh and unique entry into the franchise. Because of that change in location, it just opens up for many scenarios to happen which wouldn't have back in Woodsboro, naturally leading to a much gorier ghost face. Whilst controversial at the time, the absence of Neve Campbell was actually a benefit, as I feel like these newly established characters were strong but needed to have their own independence away from that core cast. And yeah, that seems to be the case here. Annoyingly, they do receive a bit too much plot armor, so the film quickly goes from feeling like a tense experience to just a bunch of occurrences as you feel like these characters aren't in any real danger. That was the disappointing thing, as was the killer's reveal, but besides that, it's a very thrilling ride up until the final act.
I don't want to die.
As the first entry into the franchise since Wes Craven's passing, I think Scream 5 did a solid job of taking this franchise into the modern day while still staying true to its original formula. The environment is familiar, however, I think that does serve well for the story as you bring in these new interesting characters as well as some returning old faces, and just the combination of the two blends very nicely as those legacy characters aren't overshadowing the new ones. The new ones are gaining nice development and have an identity about them. Because of this, you actually do care for the characters, so when they're put in any danger, you are feeling the tension. And with certain choices of this film, nobody feels safe, and that is just very effective. The horror genre has changed between Screams 4 and 5, so naturally this film touches on those subjects in a meta way, which just feels very true to the franchise whilst also feeling like a modern adaptation of it. So yeah, this was quite easily in second place for me, but ultimately not close enough to my number one pick.
Dusty black coat with a red right hand.
That number one pick, of course, being the original Scream. I don't think anything's going to top it, especially if they keep performing like Scream 7. This film was revolutionary as it adopts this meta humor which commentates on the slasher genre, and nothing was really seen like that before. It combines such a strong humor with an equally captivating slasher plotline which constantly keeps you on your toes as it is hard to pinpoint who the killer is. Alongside that, you do just have a great cast of characters who just help sell the uncertainty of who that killer is, making the reveal ultimately quite satisfying. This is such an iconic film, not just for the genre, but just in film history in general, and everything it goes for works, meaning that it is an easy choice for my first place. So that is my ranking of all 7 Scream films. Please let me know what your ranking is down below. I'm interested to hear. I feel like for once, this is a film franchise which probably won't have too many different similarities to mine when it comes to rankings, as just having a general look around, a lot of people seem to be in agreement with certain entries being lower down on the list or higher up. So yeah, I'm eager to hear what your rankings would be down in the comments, and while you're there, if you could like and subscribe, that would be superb. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.